quote. This is, I think, my all-time favorite quote, and not enough people know it. It was said in 1914 by a guy named John Alexander Smith, who was an Oxford professor, a visiting professor, doing a series of lectures. And he started it by saying, look, there's one benefit to getting a good education, and really only one. And this is to quote him. He said, you will have the ability to know when another person is talking rot, R-O-T. I love that. And in this leadership area, Brett, there's a lot of rot.
Yeah.
There just flat out is. It's not practical information. It might even be things to tell you what to do, but there's no rubber meets the road on how do you make that come to life day to day.
Yes. And this is a personal backstory for me. When you and I were setting out to start what was originally mindset leadership and has now turned into better culture, and this goes back 20 years for me, and it has just never let up. I can just remember the words that you used to say over and over and over on what good leadership training needed to be. You know the two words I'm going to say?
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah. We sense they're a little technical, so we don't use them in our marketing, but it's in the spirit of what we still try to do today at Better Culture, and that is to make sure anything that we teach is applied and functional.
Welcome to the Better Culture Podcast, where we make the clear connection between better culture and better business. This podcast is for leaders who want to build stronger teams, drive thriving companies, and enjoy your leadership role along the way. Now here's your host, Brett Hoogeveen, a leadership and culture aficionado, keynote speaker, and co-founder of Better Culture.
Today we're talking about something almost every leader has experienced. You attended a leadership training. It's engaging. The speaker is hopefully enjoyable. You leave thinking, that was pretty good. And then next week rolls around and nothing changes. Why? Today, we're unpacking 6 reasons that leadership training fails. And in the final part of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about a new thing, a new virtual leadership academy Better Culture is launching that's going to try to fix some of these things for interested leaders who want to grow. Today, I've got my kind of regular co-host now on occasion, at least intermittent co-host, Dr. Kim Hoogeveen, the founder of Better Culture, my father, all-around guru with us here to talk about some reasons that leadership training doesn't work the way people want it to work. So Kim, thanks for being here.
Yeah, this is a fun topic, Brett, and one that you and I have had some experience, both seeing leadership training that does work and unfortunately quite a bit that doesn't.
Yeah, and not to say that I've been perfect in my career. There are things I've learned over time that said, you know what, I think we could make that stick a little bit better. I think we could make that a little bit easier to apply, etc.
We created a whole company just because we thought it needed to be created.
That's right. So today we're going to talk about why well-meaning training and organizations invest oftentimes a good amount of money in training for leaders, and almost nobody will say leadership development, leadership training doesn't matter to us, to our organization. They spend money on one-on-one coaching for executives. They spend money on training for leaders. They send folks out to all sorts of programs. They bring in certification programs for internal folks. They build internal programming. A lot of both dollars and time gets spent on training, and we all want to make sure that we get a return on that training. So today we're here to talk about why don't we? What are some of the reasons that leadership training specifically doesn't stick?
And maybe just one comment before we get into the specifics why. Because leadership is difficult to measure, I think it's easy to do things that aren't really very effective, but it's hard to prove they aren't effective, so they continue selling stuff that doesn't really make much difference next week. If it was something that was easier to measure,
yes, then
I think the quality of the training would be better. But leadership is so abstract and squishy and like trying to get mercury in your hand that I think it lends itself, unfortunately, to a lot of training that's not very effective.
Yes, I know that is true. I know that that's true, right? If you're going to sell me something, a weight loss drug or something, we can pretty easily measure whether or not that's working, right?
Correct.
If you're going to sell me leadership training, it's not as easy to measure, no doubt.
No. So sometimes it just comes down to, well, did you feel better leaving that session? Yeah, I did. Well, it must be useful. But there's really no ROI out there in the real world that the leadership got any better.
Yeah. So in our world, I didn't plan to go this direction with this episode, but in our world of culture work, when you train teams of leaders, when you work organizationally, you can actually measure if you're making progress on how employees feel, right? So when you do an engagement survey, a culture survey, et cetera, you can tell, are we making progress here, right? You can see a clear number that comes from an employee net promoter score or our better culture survey or whatever that looks like. And that feels so great to organizations that are saying, okay, our leaders are showing up and they're doing something different, right? And there are other ways to measure success. But for one leader, it's tough to measure.
It is.
Right? So we're going to give some insights today on if you're training leaders or when you're thinking about investing in training, what are some things you should seek to do and what are some things you should seek to avoid?
We're particularly doing things to not do, I think.
That is the title of the episode. So, all right, Kim, start us off. What is one big mistake that we see happen that makes leadership training that organizations are doing not move the needle?
This first one is just so common, and I feel badly about it to this extent that people are well-intended with this stuff, but I call it the Book of the Month Club approach to leadership training.
Yes.
There's some book we're going to do this quarter. There's a speaker we bring in next quarter. There's a workshop that I saw, and we're going to bring in this part of the workshop, and we're going to do that here. And it's a playlist of stuff, Brett. It's not a program.
Yes.
It's not a cohesive approach to help develop leadership skills of your frontline managers all the way up through your CEO. And that, I think, is just commonly seen. And again, well-intended, it's seldom effective.
I see this so often. And the thing I want to mention here is how well-intended this is, right?
Yeah.
And it's not counterproductive, usually. It's just not as effective as having a cohesive, consistent vision for how do we want our leaders to show up? How do we want them to think? What do we want them to do? And how can we steadily and consistently over time build that mindset and those skill sets, right? So when for instance, somebody says, oh, here's a great TED Talk we should all watch, or here's a great new best-selling leadership book, or, well, hey, how about we run out and have everyone do this assessment, right? Or whatever those things are, if they are not building in a shared direction, right? That we're saying, here's the goal, and we're all moving consistently our skill sets and our mindsets in that direction, then oftentimes you're not really seeing significant improvement in leaders' effectiveness.
I question whether to mention this because this can be a little deep for a discussion, but I'm going to at least give it a shot. Brett, for people to be able to grasp leadership tools and techniques that can be used minute to minute, day to day, they need to have an intellectual structure, what I call a schema of leadership in their head. And of course, you know this, you could do these in your sleep, but that's why we continue at Better Culture to talk about our 7 principles of leadership and how critical it is that people embrace those 7 principles, because that's what lets them learn a specific technique and fit it into a bigger vision, a schema of how we want to treat people, how we want to go about leadership being perceived within our company.
Yes.
So this is a bit of a stretched metaphor, but and I love to live in a sports analogy world, and I love sports because there's a scoreboard.
Yes.
And in many companies, we can kind of fake how good leadership is, but it's really hard to claim great leadership when you just lost a game, a football game, 37-6. It's hard to say, yeah, everything's great here. So think about the possibility of coming in and teaching a coach how to run a football play perfectly. Every assignment, every person, at the level of ballet almost, they can run this play perfectly. And you teach that to a coach. Well, that's great. That coach now knows how to go make that play come to life. But if the coach doesn't also consider clock management, where we are in the game, the previous calls, what the defense is running, what field position we have, what down and distance we're at, the current score of the game. If they don't have all of that other context, that bigger schema, you won't be able to use that perfect play at the right time in the right way. And that's what I see with leadership training that comes in and teaches a technique, but there's nothing to hang it to.
Yes.
There's not a bigger perception of what are we trying to do at the more grand level of building an outstanding culture in a great company.
So that's actually helpful to me, Kim. And I think what I would then say, and I want to make sure people hear when they leave this, if you have a schema, book of the month is probably actually more effective, right?
Absolutely.
If you just say, here's what it means to be a leader, here's where we're going, here's the framework we're all working on, then when I learn a technique that maybe outside of your core leadership curriculum that you teach or your core program, you're more effective with that new technique because you know how it fits into what that broader vision of how you want to lead.
Absolutely. Let's go to our world. If you absolutely understand at a fundamental level why pride drives so much in your organization, both that employees know we're proud of them and that they're proud of their organization. Now when you come in and say, here's 4 specific techniques that will enhance the level of pride in your team, then those are going to be implemented because the person that's receiving that training understands the importance and how to integrate that into their day-to-day leadership.
Right. Or if you watch a new TED talk or read a new book or find something and you go, oh, that's a cool new way to build pride, it clicks, right?
Absolutely.
Because you say, that's my job, is to build a sense of pride, right?
Exactly. But if you try to start from just learning a bunch of techniques somehow and don't have a schema to tie it to, it's unlikely to be effective or for you to be able to bring it up when you need it.
Love it. Today, in case I didn't say it in the intro, Kim and I are going to go through 6 reasons that leadership training fails. And that was number 1. So let's jump to number 2. What's the second reason that we see why, again, well-intended leadership development work, training, etc., misses the mark, doesn't produce the results we want?
Another reason that it often fails, and particularly when you go out for training outside of your organization to a conference or something, and you come back with some ideas or vision for how you want to lead, but if that approach to leadership is misaligned with the organization's view of leadership, it's going to be, first of all, it's probably going to be not good for the leader that comes in and tries to implement that, misaligned with the HR policies of the organization.
Yes.
But it's important that we have the system as a whole. I talked about you as an individual having a schema, but it's also important that the organization have a system, an approach, a belief in what constitutes great leadership so that when an individual manager learns tools or techniques, it's consistent with the policies and procedures of the organization.
Yeah. So a couple just clear examples of what this might look like. Let's say a manager finds a whole new way to think about how they want to lead their team, but when that manager gets reviewed at the end of the year, what the manager's performance review doesn't have anything like that on there, right? You know, they're only evaluated for X or Y or Z, you know, how much, you know, what measurable unit or outcome or financial or whatever that is. And you say, well, what was I doing all year? I was trying to invest in my team. I was trying to grow my people. I feel like I made progress on these things, but nobody seems to care because it doesn't affect my evaluation, right? So it could be evaluations for leaders. It could be evaluations for employees that are misaligned.
It could be how we handle poor performance. Could be how we discipline.
Sure.
Again, there has to be congruence between what the individual leader is trying to do and the philosophy you're trying to lead with, and the system policy and procedures that you're working on.
We see that one in our own training regularly. When we're not all the way in with clients, we still believe this, but we understand the handcuffs that leaders are going to be working with when we say leadership principle 4. It's a leader's job to protect the right of good employees to work with good employees. And when you've got someone that is either not carrying their fair share of the load or is being really toxic and hard to work with, we believe that should be dealt with swiftly and efficiently to protect the right of your other good employees. Now, if we send a leader back to an organization where they're not supported by the performance management team or the HR function or whatever that looks like, then that's a misalignment between what a leader's trying to accomplish and what the organization is prioritizing.
And I think this is also, Brett, why we're maybe not insistent, but we're close, that when we start working with an organization, we want to work with their executive team initially to see that they understand the leadership philosophy that we want to bring in and teach to their frontline managers.
Yeah, for sure. One other, Kim, I think you had mentioned, maybe, I don't know if you'll remember this, but I think you had mentioned a day or two ago a story that reminds me a little bit of an organization that was trying to show some appreciation for an employee through just a small bonus. And they weren't able to even get that done because of, again, a system misalignment.
Yeah, you pretty much told the story. They literally were trying to do a $400 bonus, and it blew the system up. They had they weren't even opposed to letting the manager do it. They just they'd never done it before. They did not do it. I mean, they were going to, the CFO was going to have to get involved for them to be able to process a $400 bonus.
Right.
I was being not serious, but I finally told the manager, is there any chance you just want to go buy him something personally and give it to him, because it's going to take you a week and a half just to get through the system.
Right.
Just do it yourself and go around the company.
Yes. So just one way, again, if you've been training on, how to show appreciation, et cetera, you go outside things, there is that misalignment. Okay. We've covered that one pretty well. The third one that we want to cover today on reasons that leadership training doesn't have the impact that we want.
This is probably the one that's hardest for me to sit through stuff if I don't think it's being delivered very well, or I don't think the content's worthwhile. There's a lot of stuff out there that is just flat out too global or abstract.
Yes.
It's not practical leadership training.
Kind of
anybody can do anything with
sounding.
It. And it sounds profound.
Yeah.
And I sit in these sessions and I see people actually taking notes, and nodding their heads as if they're getting some wisdom here in this training. And it's things like you need to be strategic,
Sure.
Okay, empower your team, build a culture of accountability, communicate more. I love that one. You just need to communicate better.
Oh, that's really good
hire
advice.
great people.
Yeah.
No kidding. This is like, duh. But they actually get paid for these keynotes at times, and it's just kind of dumbfounding to me. A term that I didn't make up, but I ran into recently, I loved. It's called hallmark leadership.
Oh, yes.
I love the term. This is, they're training on something that you'd see on a Hallmark card, but it has nothing to do with how you'll be more effective interacting with a human you're supervising next Monday. It's just pablum.
Yes.
There's and Brett, I know you have heard me say this enough, but it's my all-time. There's a lot of people I quote. This is, I think, my all-time favorite quote, and not enough people know it. It was said in 1914 by a guy named John Alexander Smith, who was an Oxford professor, a visiting professor, doing a series of lectures, and he started it by saying, "Look, there's one benefit to getting a good education, and really only one." And this is to quote him. He said, "You will have the ability to know when another person is talking rot." R-O-T. I love that. And in this leadership area, Brett, there's a lot of rot.
Yeah.
There just flat out is. It's not practical information. It might even be things that tell you what to do, but there's no rubber meets the road on how do you make that come to life day to day.
Yes. And this is a personal backstory for me. When you and I were setting out to start what was originally mindset leadership and has now turned into better culture, and this goes back 20 years for me, and it has just never let up. I can just remember the words that you used to say over and over and over on what good leadership training needed to be. You know the two words I'm going to say?
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah. We sense they're a little technical, so we don't use them in our marketing, but it's in the spirit of what we still try to do today at Better Culture, and that is to make sure anything that we teach is applied and functional. Easy to use, applicable, functional, something that someone can say, I got that, and I know exactly how to implement that. Can you talk a little bit about why applied and functional is so important specifically to you?
Yeah, I think it comes back to my background as a behavioral psychologist. It also comes back, though, a little bit to my background as a CEO. If you're going to invest time and money in leadership training, it needs to actually have a beneficial impact, not only for the company, but for the individuals being supervised. Does the leadership philosophy that you're training, does it help individuals lead in a way that helps the people that report to them find more success at work and in life. And to be effective, you must be able to do applied and functional skill sets, tools, techniques.
Yes.
And you can tell they don't let me do marketing anymore. They've spiffed up the language. I still am back on. I just wanted applied and functional. Pretty straightforward. So Brett's right. That has been a few of the things that I just won't let go of.
Yeah, well, it is true. It is true. And I think back to this point that we're making here, which is that it can be, leadership can just be too abstract, too high-minded, too global. That's the tell. The tell is nobody else can tell the leader learned anything, right?
Correct.
So they went, they said, oh, that was great. I learned so much, et cetera. But they didn't change anything that they do, right?
Absolutely.
So leadership training that only you learn something, but you don't do anything different is completely ineffective.
Yes.
Completely, right? It needs to be something that you can apply, something functional, something that's useful, that's practical, that you can actually go do, behave differently as a leader next week, right?
Correct.
So if you run into leadership topics that sound like they sound good, but you can't put your finger on, so what do you actually do to put that in place? That's when you know somebody's talking rot.
Absolutely.
Cool.
You're at Hallmark Leadership, guys.
All right.
Get beyond that. Brett, I want to kick the next one for a minute. It has to do, it's really related to that, but it's how well the leadership training actually connects to real world leadership situations.
Yes.
And I've heard you talk about this before, so I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by connect to day-to-day real world situations?
Well, this is the fourth reason that we want to cover. And it is easy to sit through a training and to intellectually listen to an idea, but even to leave a session and then realize, you know what, I have to meet with a team member who's not performing right after this. Can I use something that I just learned to make this go better, right? How do I apply what I just learned? And a lot of training out there isn't applicable enough to the real world. It's not grounded in what's really happening, right? It happens in a classroom, in an artificial environment, and everything sounds good. But you know what? I've got to go deal with a really upset customer right now, or I've got a team that's in dysfunction, or I've got a real lack of innovation or energy, or people they're just not producing at the level I need them to produce, or whatever those real, actual daily leadership challenges are. And so what I see here, Kim, is programs that if they're not grounded in what are the actual challenges that you're facing as a leader and how can I help you with those challenges, then the program itself is a bit artificial and people will struggle to utilize it.
Let me give you a compliment because you deserve it on this one. I see people do leadership training that if they happen to lose their notes coming in for that session, you're in big trouble.
Sure.
And in general, I think it's very difficult for effective leadership training to be delivered unless the person delivering it has sort of, with the audience, they're just intuitively, they know that person's credible.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're working with training via PowerPoint slides, or again, and it can be engaging and funny and their little breakouts are fine, but you really wouldn't want to let them do an open Q&A.
Right.
Because they would probably be lost.
Right.
And I think somehow that credibility factor of the presenter is a big deal. And when I watch you do a keynote address with 300 people in the room, and you do a part of the training, and then you say, I've watched you throw up a word cloud with 28 leadership concepts, and say, what up there looks interesting to you? So you're going out and doing a speech for 90 minutes in front of 300 people, and for half of it, you don't know when you walk out there what you're going to be talking about. That is such an obvious, overt indication of credibility.
Yeah.
You know your stuff. You've tied it to real world situations, and then you go into a comfortable Q&A.
Right.
I think the content is delivered. The content is important, but I think the person or the credibility of the person doing the training is undervalued in this area.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's taken me a lot of years to get to that point. And what I have realized, back to this point of not being able to connect leadership training concepts to the real world, I started my journey as a trainer, as a speaker, focused exclusively on the content, right? What do I want to teach? What do I know that's so smart that somebody needs to hear? And as I've grown in my career, where I find myself being most productive and delivering the best results for clients is when I can walk into a room not focused on what I want to say, but on what are the challenges of my audience? What are the things they're actually trying to improve? What are the things they're faced with this week, right? And in that instance, you could say this is shifting a bit from training to consulting, but I think great training should be wired in a way and built in a way that it's not about the training, it's about the people being trained.
Correct.
And what they're trying to improve on, what real world challenges they are looking to overcome. And so that's why I've rewired many of my keynotes is to make them interactive with the audience, but I love this sort of the audience gets to choose its own adventure because I'm there to serve them, not the other way around, right? I'm not there to give a speech, I'm there to give value, to teach something, to provide takeaways, and every audience is different.
And to go even one step deeper, this is why I personally really enjoy training more than keynotes, because keynotes you have to get off stage at a given time, et cetera. But in training, the other thing you can do, Brett, if you know your stuff exceptionally well, is you read the audience. And so you will come back and say, I want to go after that again because I don't think you got how important what I just said is.
Yeah.
Listen to me. This is critical.
Right.
Because you read the audience that they were, okay, what? No. So really good teachers are often not found delivering leadership training.
Yeah.
But if you know your stuff on leadership, but you're also a good teacher, I think that's where you start. It makes a difference 2 weeks from Tuesday. Something really changes in the company.
Excellent. That was number 4. Let's go to number 5, the 5th reason that training doesn't stick.
Training doesn't stick because at times because the person who received the training is working in isolation. They have to apply it alone within the company. Now, this is a little related to, we talked if the system is against you, but I'm talking about something different here. I'm talking about it's so powerful if you have a peer of leaders, a peer group of leaders who are all trying to approach leadership the same way.
Yes.
So you have peers in the management team that are reinforcing you, brainstorming with you, helping you move the ball up the hill. At Better Culture, Brett, we call this team leadership.
Yes.
When you get lateral support.
Yes.
Because you're all pulling the same direction.
And a group of leaders that are trying to accomplish the same things and that are all trying to grow the same direction, right? They can support each other, their individual growth. They can also support each other's actual efforts with their teams.
Absolutely.
Right? And both of those are massively important. This idea of growing as a leadership team versus training one person, right? Hopefully everyone understands, you've been a part of a cohort learning group, et cetera, the value of learning from shared experiences, from working through something with a group of people, right?
A phrase that I have used that I think summarizes this for me is a language of leadership that's spoken by only one person in a system is almost always doomed.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
It's not going to be strong enough to withstand if there's only one person speaking that language.
Love it. Okay, number 6, last one I want to jump to is when training is just one and done. Okay? Yeah, we send you to do a program. Oh, we bring something in once, hope something stuck, and then next week we're moved on to something else. And unfortunately, we see this pretty regularly. I've even been guilty of doing this from time to time, not slowing down and say, whoa. If we're trying to build a skill here, if we're trying to help someone learn and grow, we need to make sure that we don't just introduce something once, that we provide opportunities for people to learn something, then go try it, then reflect on it, then come back and maybe discuss it or revisit it to try it again, right? To reinforce these new skills that we're trying to learn. Leaders will make so much more progress if they stay focused on a certain approach or skill, et cetera, and repeat it, come back to it. Don't just say, well, that was a good training. Let's move on to 100 other things we could all learn.
Brett, when we're doing training, I like to talk about that. I sort of do this preemptively so they know it's going to happen, that we are going to repeat some things several times. And sometimes I repeat as I get older because I forgot I told you. That does happen. I acknowledge that. But many times we're actually repeating for a very specific purpose. That we know when you hear something initially, you've learned it at what we call a recognition level. That if you hear it again, oh yeah, I've heard that before. But you wouldn't have been able to spontaneously teach it to someone else.
Yes.
So what we want to do is to get these concepts learned at what we call a recall level. So when those opportunities for you to use that tool and technique come up, you'll be able to bring it up and use it in that instance.
Yes.
Teachable moments.
Teachable moments. And candidly, Kim, fewer good leadership principles, philosophies, goals, objectives, skills repeated consistently by a group of people is much more effective than 100 ideas just glossed over once.
Better than the Book of the Month Club approach?
Better than the Book of the Month Club.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, so those are 6 things, candidly, to avoid if you're looking to develop yourself as a leader or if you're looking to build a program. Avoid those 6 things. And to summarize them for you real quick. Yeah, Kim, you got something else?
No, go ahead. I want you to talk about something we're going to try, but go ahead, summarize first.
Yeah. So number 1, avoid the Book of the Month Club. Number 2, make sure that what you're teaching and training or exposing your leaders to matches and aligns to the systems of the organization, etc. Number 3, don't find stuff that's exclusively abstract or global. Make sure it's applied and functional. Number 4, make sure that it's connected to actual daily leadership situations, that it's practical, that it's applicable. Number 5, if you can, don't let leaders try to grow in isolation. Help leaders grow in groups, work together, grow together in a shared philosophy. And lastly, don't make leadership training a one-and-done thing. Revisit, reflect, etc.
So we've done a nice job here of pointing out why a lot of leadership training doesn't work. And so the logical question for us was, well, so what? And we've tried over the years to do our leadership training very differently. And we've had pretty doggone good success, to be blunt.
Most of the time.
It's we've got pretty strong reviews. But we're going to try something new. And Brett, I know you particularly have taken a lead for us on building out what we call Better Culture's Virtual Leadership Academy. So talk a little bit about what you're going to do and why you think it might be powerful.
Well, this is a new offering that we're going to be starting here in 2026. And so our listeners will hear about this in a few other places. So I'll try to make this brief today. But what Better Culture has been challenged with is we've been able to very well serve organizations that want to invest in better leadership training for a company. And we do once or twice a year, we do an event that people can come to, our Better Culture Live event. But if we've got 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 leaders out there that are looking to invest in themselves, that are looking to grow, and they're not in the Omaha area, and they don't want to wait till September when we do Better Culture Live, we have some on-demand, some video stuff, but we've never had a perfect, easy program where they could just jump into immediately to learn and grow. And so we're starting that with Better Culture. We're launching this year, probably end of April, early May, we're going to be kicking off our Better Culture Virtual Leadership Academy. And what that program is going to be intended to do is provide a learning environment, big surprise here, but that avoids those six things that are not great for leadership training and really does the opposite. So I'd like just to share a little bit about what that's going to look like. It will be based on our Better Culture 7 Principles of Leadership curriculum that has been tried and true across bunches and bunches of industries. You'll be able to jump into that course. There'll be 1 course a month with opportunity to apply, to try things. We're not real big on heavy homework, but there's going to be some amount of saying, okay, we taught you something useful, go use it. And when we come back together next month, I want to know what happened.
So
right?
These are done live?
They're done live. This is live instruction, right? Live courses with real focus on using the content between sessions, right? Because we want people to really go learn the concepts and the structures and to have a chance to reflect, right? We're also going to have Ask Me Anything sessions where again, we can put the lens on the leader and what their challenges are. So once a month, there'll be a topic that we teach, and once a month, there'll be an opportunity for people to bring their challenges to the table, to get live feedback, group discussion, coaching from myself or other Better Culture trainers that are running the program, right? So it's half on our content and it's half on what your actual challenges are, okay? So sound good so far?
Well, yeah, I hope I get to sit in on some of those just to listen.
Yeah,
This will be great.
You'll probably have to run a couple of those Ask Me Anything sessions. And you can join anytime. So over the course of a full calendar year, wherever you join, you'll get through the whole course curriculum over the next 12 months. So it's a 12-month program that can start any time.
And you're talking about, when you say course curriculum, Brett, we're talking about things like how you can help grow employees.
Yes.
They're a 4 on a 10 point that we can turn them into a 7 if you use these 24 techniques. How to build more pride, how to hold people accountable.
Yes.
How to deal with conflict more comfortably and competently.
Yes.
How to improve your decision making as a leader. Those type of things, am I correct?
Those types of things, how to build a higher performing team, how to use goals effectively as a leader and manager. So how to make work more enjoyable and fun. So we're gonna be focused on practical leadership topics, useful leadership topics, and we're gonna do it as a group, as a cohort that supports each other on their growth. So if anyone is interested, we have a landing page for the program. It'll be kicking off very soon. But if they'll go to betterculture.com/academy, you'll find all the details for the program.
Wonderful. I think this is a terrific opportunity, Brett, for folks in a very comfortable way to get exposed to really high-level effective training that I think will make a big difference 2 weeks from Tuesday.
Yeah, I can't wait for this new opportunity, honestly, to be able to engage with folks on your schedule, from wherever you are, to join a group of other folks that are trying to build that clearer mindset, that clearer framework for what does it mean to be a leader, how can we be more effective, et cetera. And what's going to be fun is this program will work great for individuals that want to join or for organizations that have a handful of leaders that you're looking for development opportunities for. This will be perfect.
You know, ultimately what we're doing, Brett, with this is we're helping leaders become more effective at being able to attract, build, motivate, and retain phenomenal people and put them in an environment they truly enjoy. And when you can do that, the odds of business success explode.
Love it. All right. Thank you, Kim. For those of you listening, whatever you're doing to grow yourself as a leader or whatever you're doing in your organizations, do your best to avoid those 6 things that won't make that training stick. And if you'd like a little bit of exposure to some ideas that maybe will help it stick, check us out. Thanks a bunch. Before we wrap up, I want to share something exciting. For the first time ever, Better Culture has launched a virtual leadership academy, a 12-month experience for leaders and managers who are serious about expanding their leadership skills, impact, and influence. Whether you're investing in yourself or a team of managers, this program was built for you. If you're serious about building something better, this is your next step. Learn more at betterculture.com/academy.